The leaders scoffed at Jesus, saying, "He saved others, let him save himself, if he is the Messiah of God, the chosen one." The soldiers also mocked him, coming up, offering him wine and sour wine, and saying, "If you are King of the Jews, save yourself." Now, some years ago, I used to serve Christ Lutheran Church in Arcadia, Wisconsin. Arcadia is home of delicious furniture and comfortable chicken, if you've ever been there. And I thought Christ Lutheran Church, Christ the King Sunday, we should make a big thing about this, that Christ is our King. However, in Wisconsin, maybe there's different kings. I know that there are at least 2 high holy days. One of them, Packer Sunday, and the other, deer hunting season. Back in that day, it was mostly men that were hunting, so the service was only women there. But now, women are hunting more and more, so probably nobody there. One of my colleagues, his wife made him a blaze orange stole just for protection. So we couldn't celebrate that. The leader scoffed at Jesus, saying, "He saved others, let him save himself, if he is the Messiah of God." The soldiers also mocked him, saying, "If you are the King of the Jews, save yourself." What is it that makes a king? At one time, kings were born. Recently, Sandy and I watched this movie, The King. I don't know if you've seen that on Netflix. According to Wikipedia, The King is a 2019 historical drama film based on several plays from William Shakespeare's Hennerad. Like Henry Hennerad. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that. Okay, here's the spoiler alert. I'm going to tell you about this movie. According to the movie, Henry V was the son of Henry IV, that you could probably figure out, of England. Henry V took over when his father, a very unpopular king, died. And Henry IV became, this is true, one of the most popular kings in England history. Henry V, did I say Henry IV? No, Henry V was the most popular. Henry V succeeded to the throne, but the question was, would he be accepted by the people? And I don't know if this is historically correct, but in the movie, there was a feeling that if he wasn't accepted, there would be a coup and they would place someone else on the throne. Henry V seemed to be much more interested in the people's welfare than his father. His father was more interested in expanding the kingdom. Yet, it wasn't until Henry, who was known in history as a great military mind, defeated the French, that he was accepted as king. He went to war with the French because he was provoked into war by the French. They even sent an assassin who Henry's men captured to avoid the assassination attempt. Henry's advisors knew that if he was seen to be a strong military hero, people would love him, and they were right. Later, Henry discovered that it was not the French who provoked the war, it was his advisors. In fact, they were the ones that planted the assassin, not to kill Henry, but to get him to go to war. It did cement his kingship. The leader scoffed at Jesus, saying, "He saved others, let him save himself if he's the Messiah of God, God's chosen one." The soldiers also came up, saying, "If you are the King of the Jews, save yourself." We read those verses and we forget how radical this all is, how radical Jesus is, how ridiculous it sounds for people to think this guy is supposed to be somebody special. He's supposed to be some kind of king, some kind of God, and he can't even save himself. We are familiar with the story, so familiar with the rest of the story, that it's hard for us to get in touch with those people's minds, especially Jesus' detractors. Well, maybe it's easier these days because more and more people are saying that they don't believe in God. Well, I don't believe in atheists, so we're even. But maybe they were thinking, I've heard a lot about what this Jesus has done. Fed the hungry and the thirsty, turned water into wine, gave sight to the deaf and hearing to the blind, cast out demons. Maybe he did all that stuff, and maybe he didn't. But if he's such a great and powerful king or God, why not destroy his enemies and set himself free? If he can't set himself free, what good is he to me? Jesus has all this power. Why doesn't he use it? But Jesus is a different kind of king, a different kind of leader. We don't even see these kind of leaders today. Remember King David, what did he use his power for? Steal somebody else's wife? Kings and leaders have used their power for their own personal gains to make themselves powerful, richer, or whatever. What does Jesus use his power for? Actually, he doesn't use his power. He gave up his power and let himself be put to death. Didn't use his unlimited power to escape and destroy his enemies. Instead, he died for his enemies. When we think of Jesus, we might think of his superpowers, powers of a god, like feeding the hungry by using 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, feed 5,000 men and the women and children, turn water into wine, give sight to the blind and hearing to the deaf, cast out demons. But maybe his greatest superpower was just being a perfect human being. And by perfect human being, I mean just doing what God calls all of us to do. Love God and love others. To love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your might, and to love your neighbor as yourself. He did what God calls us all to do. He showed love for God by showing his love and giving his life for us. By not saving himself, but dying for us. So here's the question for us. Are we ready for that kind of king? Do we want that kind of king? Are we ready for a king that doesn't use his power? A king that instead appears weak and out of control? Our political consultants don't think so. How often do you hear people that are running for public office, people that want to be our leaders, say, I made a mistake. I was wrong. I was weak. And I'm willing to sacrifice myself and what I want personally and what I need personally for the sake of others. I haven't heard that. When people get away with doing what we think is wrong, we think, why isn't God doing something about this? Why isn't the world perfect? If God is so powerful and in control, Why doesn't God do something about this? Why didn't Jesus lift himself up? Why did he let himself be weak? But maybe the greatest expression of power is to be able to be weak. Maybe the greatest expression of power is to show weakness. Maybe that's too heavy, right? Pardon the pun. What we do know is, thanks be to God, Jesus did not escape. That's sad to say, but true. Thanks be to God, Jesus did not escape. Thanks be to God, Jesus did what he had to do for our sake. Now, there's an interesting thing about this movie, The King. Maybe it happened in history. You never know with movies. But the great military move that King Henry V made to defeat the larger French army that was in a better position was that he sent a small group of soldiers forward to draw the French out and into a trap. But that small group of soldiers, it was pretty much a suicide mission. But it worked. Henry wanted to be in that group, that suicide group, that sacrificial group that went forward, but they wouldn't let him. Jesus was in that sacrificial group, the group of one, for us. Jesus sacrificed himself for us. That's our King, the King of Christ King Sunday. Thanks be to God. Amen.